Kang Soohwa is your typical struggling lead character. Not only is he broke and jobless, but he's also on the brink of being kicked out of his home. Desperate to find work, he goes around the city until he's introduced in the most unlikely way to Yohan, Café Goyo's manager. But it turns out this cafe isn't your typical neighborhood cafe. Even though they're a cafe, their coffee is crap. So here comes Soohwa to the rescue, thus starting the slow and steady friendship that leads to a heartwarming romance. Two bodies are standing huddled together, one much bigger than the other. A gentle touch. The smaller man finds himself backed up by the hulking body of the other man, who's about 1.5 feet taller than him. And with the latter's soft touches, Soohwa continues to cave into the pleasure. What a way to make an intro, am I right? Just dive right into the good part, why don't ya? But it wasn't until the bigger man moves closer to the other one's ears that the latter continued to panic in earnest, and tried fervently to stop the bigger man from speaking. But he did. In a daze, the smaller man wonders to himself how he ended up like this. And so do we. How exactly did these two find themselves in such a position? To quote Coldplay in one of their hit songs, The Scientist, I'll take you back to the start. Meet 26-year-old Kang Soohwa, who's not only suffering from a cold but is also broke and jobless at the moment. Just your typical main character things. Always broke and struggling. And it doesn't help that his laptop broke, which made all his job hunting efforts extra harder. So despite still feeling feverish, he decides to step out only with his cell phone at hand, thinking he could connect to somebody else's Wi-Fi. And here comes problem number 2. He can't connect to Wi-Fi. I mean, can you believe it? In this day and age, no Wi-Fi. Well, I can't blame people for being frugal about these things. It looks like luck ain't on Soohwa's side today. Or is it? Soohwa, who's now looking for 2 things, Wi-Fi and a job, continues to walk around a city until he manages to connect to one. And just as soon as he did, he got splashed by freezing water from a hose above. Remember Full Metal Alchemist? This must be equivalent exchange in Soohwa's world. Dripping with cold water, Soohwa looks up to the image of a tall man with broad shoulders, who also manages to make eye contact with him before he loses consciousness, with the voice of another man shouting from a distance. And just like that, Soohwa's eyes fly open and finds himself lying in bed, wondering what happened when his eyes dart to another figure in the room, a bear. Well, at least in Soohwa's term. The glasses guy can't help the hulking mass that he is, can he? As Soohwa continues to watch the bigger man from his bed, the younger man notices how the other just calmly folding laundry before he decides to come over to Soohwa's side. Scared of the stranger, Soohwa braces himself as the glasses guy reaches his hand out to him to check his temperature. Can Soohwa get any more dramatic than this? And just as the big guy did, another person enters the room, a man with lighter hair and built with a smaller frame than this one. To this man, Soohwa asks where he is, answering that he's located on the cafe's 3rd floor, and told him how they were only testing out their new garden hose. Well, if it isn't your typical case of the wrong place at the wrong time. But trust me, Soohwa just happens to be at the right place at the right time. Since Soohwa lost consciousness, he asked this strange man why they didn't take him to the hospital instead, to which the man said, beaming, that he was down to help Yohan find a burial spot for him. It was a joke, obviously, but jokes are half meant, right? Despite feeling a bit scared of the man's questionable character, Soohwa ushers his thanks with the man telling him he can grab what he wants at the cafe on his way out. Now realizing that it's a cafe, the man explains that the cafe where he's at, Café Goyo, is famous for many things, with Yohan working as the manager. And you know what the funny thing is? Even though they run a cafe, their coffee tastes like crap. Thankfully, the menu is its saving grace, so at least they got a silver lining, am I right? Seizing the opportunity, Soohwa asks if they're hiring part-timers, to which the man quickly shuts him down. Actually, his attitude suddenly became firm. Soohwa tries to guilt-trip them, asking them if they don't feel sorry for what they did to him, but no, this man is much firmer. He even calls out Soohwa's tantrums. But Soohwa, undeterred, starts to market himself, albeit poorly, that he's done a lot of odd jobs and that he can do practically anything. He just really needs the job. And here comes the sob story. He then continues how he hasn't paid off his utility bills in months, and if he can't come up with the money, he might be evicted from his home. Unfortunately for him, Yohan's friend doesn't give a crap. But fortunately for him, Yohan pitied him and was so moved by his story. So lesson learned, kids, if you need help, get ready to pull your sob story to get a pity party. Since he has already won Yohan's favor, the man has no choice but to give in and asks him if he knows how to make coffee, to which Soohwa answers yes. So all's well, right? But the man's apprehensive nature seems to stem from something in the past. He even thought to himself that Yohan was doing it again, but still, he respects Yohan's decision. But when a similar event happens again, the man promises himself that he won't just sit idly by. So is there a tragic backstory here? And what is this man's name? Well, the only way to know is to keep watching. So fast forward a week later, Soohwa finally makes his way to Café Goyo for his first day. And while walking, he can't help but reminisce about the events that took place during his first meeting with them. Bad idea, chum. You're just gonna embarrass the heck out of yourself thinking of what you did. And truly, he did get embarrassed at how he demanded to get hired. But like everybody else, he brushed it off like a champ. But apart from reminiscing his embarrassment over the event, one particular scene also tugged at his memory. So here's a quick flashback of the rest of the events that day. Yohan's colleague finally introduces himself as Gi-yoon. Opposite Yohan, Gi-yoon handles the cashier, as well as do several other chores and keeps the place clean from time to time. So you guessed it, the man's basically useless and sits pretty in the cafe. Whereas we have Yohan, who not only serves as Café Goyo's manager, he's also in charge of the kitchen, handles the customer, oversees the management, and well, basically a one-man army. But he sucks at making coffee though. Soohwa then introduces himself once again, and this time, Gi-yoon couldn't help but comment about his name. You see, Soohwa's name, in Hangul, translates to sign language. We see what you did there, author. Gi-yoon then instructs Soohwa that he could start work as soon as his cold gets better, but before he dismissed him, he tells him to learn the basics of sign along with a book of it for beginners. Being obedient to Gi-yoon's instructions, Soohwa learned a few signs, including hello, to increase his hourly pay, and that he's off work. Still, he wonders why he had to. And yes, it's because Gi-yoon forgot to tell him one crucial piece of info about Yohan. It didn't take long for Soohwa to reach the cafe, where he found out that he was the first one there. After listening for a bit, he hears a sound coming from the back, which he chooses to follow to check. Sounds like a scene from a horror story. Outside, he discovers that the cafe has a sprawling garden where the kitchen got its stock. Seeing all this, of course, Soohwa made a mental note of asking for higher pay. Yohan is also in here, with his back to Soohwa, watering some of the plants. Soohwa continues to call out to him in earnest, but Yohan pays him no mind, thinking his boss must not have heard him. Well, you're in for a surprise, Sherlock. Thinking Yohan didn't hear him, Soohwa decided to move closer and gently tapped him on the shoulder, which startled Yohan, making him swing his arm in defense. Yo, one blow from that and you could be out cold in a sec. Luckily, he missed and both men were left surprised by each other's actions. Here, Soohwa asks him whether or not Yohan heard him, but the older man tried to explain using sign language. And Soohwa, totally oblivious of Yohan's predicament, tactlessly asked what he was doing, swinging his arms and all. Facepalm. Oh, the sheer secondhand embarrassment Soohwa gives in this scene is absolutely sensational. Yohan soon realizes that Soohwa was not aware of his condition, which is why he mumbles a simple sorry. Oh, and here, ladies and gentlemen, is where it all begins, the awakening of Soohwa's peculiar fixation. He realizes that Yohan has a pretty deep voice, which is pretty captivating. Later on, when Gi-yoon comes in late for work, Soohwa asks if Yohan isn't much of a talker and narrated the things that happened earlier. To this, Gi-yoon only moved closer and asked if he didn't tell him. Tell him what, exactly? Well, the fact that Yohan is deaf, Gi-yoon finally reveals, and we're left with an awkward silence from both men. So Yohan's deaf, which isn't exactly something that's kept a secret. It's kind of like an elephant in the room. Soohwa was just a bit slow on the uptake, just main character things, realizing how rude he was earlier. Even asking Yohan why he was swinging his arms when he's actually signing, Soohwa feels bad. Even worse, he thinks maybe he'll get fired. But Gi-yoon assures him that Yohan's not like that. Still, Soohwa apologizes to Yohan, even bowing his head in respect, to which the latter only looks on. He then starts to apologize using sign and voices out that he didn't know Yohan's deaf. Lucky for him, Yohan is quick to forgive and tells him, through sign, that it's alright. What an angel. Gi-yoon, who was observing all this, assures Soohwa that Yohan isn't the type to bear grudges and doesn't sweat the small matters. This made Soohwa ask why Yohan uses sign language when in fact, he has a pretty nice voice. To this, Gi-yoon's jaw dropped and asked if he already heard Yohan speak. I mean, duh, they wouldn't be having this conversation if Soohwa didn't hear Yohan, right? Knowing all this, Gi-yoon was quiet for a moment before telling Soohwa that Yohan must have liked him a lot for him to be able to hear his voice easily. He's not much of a talker, remember? And to emphasize how special he was, Gi-yoon even said that the last time he heard Yohan speak was a few weeks ago. That's some privilege our boy Soohwa got right here. Soohwa, the ever so curious Soohwa, then asks why Yohan won't speak, but Gi-yoon thinks that it's because Yohan finds it awkward not being able to hear his own voice. And here comes another big reveal. Yohan wasn't actually born deaf, he had an accident that rendered him as such. Gi-yoon was even making threats under his breath just remembering about it, but luckily, their first customer came in, shifting Soohwa's focus back on the job. And just like that, it's the end of the shift already. By 11 p.m., Soohwa was busy changing his clothes out of his uniform, wondering what to eat when he bumped into Yohan. And the awkwardness continues. Soohwa panics thinking about how to sign that he's off work when Yohan taps him and starts writing on a notepad. As soon as he's done jotting down his thoughts, he shows it to Soohwa. But his handwriting is too ugly to read. Yohan, my man, there is something in life that you can't really win at? Huh. As Soohwa continued to decipher his handwriting, Yohan just grabbed his arm, leaned into his ear, and told him that he can just talk comfortably since he can read Soohwa's lips. And just as soon as he did that, Soohwa jumped back from Yohan and hurriedly run off. Now, why would he do that? Looks like our boy just felt something. Because of Soohwa's strange behavior, Yohan couldn't help but think of his handwriting as incorrigible. Back to Soohwa, he runs off into the night, huffing and desperate to reach his house as soon as possible. And as he stood panting in the doorway, he can't help but think about Yohan's voice, thinking he must be losing his mind. Do you know why? It's cause our boy felt a sudden rush downstairs just from listening to Yohan. Oh no intensifies. The next day, business resumes as usual in Café Goyo, with Yohan manning the cashier. As a customer picks up her order, she overhears Gi-yoon scolding Soohwa on why he can't differentiate the sign of potato and garlic. Poor kid's been struggling really hard with Gi-yoon grilling him like meat. As the two continue their banter, Yohan approaches them with an intimidating aura and signs they need to have a closed-door meeting. Oh, it's only a matter of time before these two got on Yohan's nerves. And then it's revealed that Yohan's feeling upset over Soohwa because he feels left out. The big guy has been wondering why Soohwa won't ask him for sign lessons instead of asking Gi-yoon. Despite his hulking nature, Yohan is a softie through and through. To this, Soohwa only told Gi-yoon that he can't take lessons from Yohan himself because of personal reason. The term personal would be an understatement to use in this case, if you ask me. Gi-yoon continues to prod Soohwa since everybody knows that Yohan is the better teacher at signs, so he's the best candidate as a teacher. But still, Soohwa won't budge, making Gi-yoon all the more curious. Careful, Soohwa, Gi-yoon is devious. The prodding continues with Gi-yoon asking more questions and Soohwa giving more vague answers, only hinting about having something to do with Yohan's voice. So Gi-yoon just voices out the first thing that pops into his head, asking Soohwa if he feels a certain way when he hears Yohan's voice. Bingo. And Soohwa refuses to make eye contact and starts sweating. Well, silence means yes, didn't they used to say? And Gi-yoon, being how he is, of course, had to see it for himself. He forces Soohwa to listen to a voice recording of Yohan's voice. Poor kid really had it rough since chapter 1. Upon realizing that Soohwa does feel a rush downstairs whenever he hears Yohan's voice, the internal battle of wanting to tease him and letting him off proves quite to be the struggle. In the end, Soohwa cries in embarrassment, so Gi-yoon let his good side win this time and lets Soohwa go. Well, would you look at that? The man has some good in him after all. Now that he knows why Soohwa doesn't want to take sign lessons from Yohan, he asks why this would hinder the lessons. Technically speaking, Yohan can read lips, so they could still communicate. To this, Soohwa says that he feels like it would be a one-sided conversation and doesn't seem like a real one if he communicates like that. Oh, Soohwa turns out to be not only a softie but also considerate after all. But of course, there's also the fact that if he can't sign, Yohan would have to speak to communicate with him, which circles us back to his wood problem. Hearing all this, Gi-yoon can't help but tease him a bit by playing a recording of Yohan's voice again, but then he's taken aback at how he didn't expect Soohwa to be thoughtful of Yohan's situation. Today seems to be full of surprises for both men. In the end, Gi-yoon chose not to teach Soohwa anymore and advises him to ask Yohan to teach him directly. And as he exits the staff room, Gi-yoon noticed that Yohan was sitting and waiting outside the door, which made him think that for the first time, it seems that Yohan unintentionally hired someone keen on understanding him. Although there is still the undisputed fact that Soohwa gets weak in the knees every time he hears Yohan's voice. The more Soohwa spends time working at the cafe, the more he discovers several peculiar things about it, such as how their coffee really tastes like crap. Have you ever heard of a cafe with coffee that could work as poison? That's how bad it is. Another thing he discovered about Café Goyo is that the menu is pretty customizable. Pretty much every customer orders things that are not on the menu. Between you and me, don't you think Yohan would have a hard time catering to that? But then again, it kinda makes up for their bad coffee. Even the customers are aware of this. Knowing all this, Soohwa wonders why not run a restaurant instead of sticking with a cafe. To this, Gi-yoon answers that Yohan is hellbent on running a cafe. Plus, according to Yohan, running a cafe seems cooler. Right, I guess it's all about the aesthetics at the end of the day. So, what else? Well, there's the fact that Café Goyo is closed every Monday, which is one of the busiest days if you ask me. And that this peculiar cafe's peak hours are the opposite of a regular cafe. Isn't it nice? At least Soohwa is spared from all the hassle of pre- and post-meal times. While Soohwa stands manning the counter during the cafe's idle hours, Gi-yoon asks him to bring Yohan's afternoon snack in the garden. As he puts it down and is about to return inside, Yohan grabs his arm and starts typing on his phone. And he continues to type, which is taking a little longer than usual because he's using one hand. With his arm held firmly by Yohan, Soohwa couldn't leave and had to wait as his hand continues to go numb until Yohan finally shows him what he typed. In it, Yohan asks Soohwa to come to the shop tomorrow, knowing that the shop is closed. He expresses his intent on teaching Soohwa at least a few gestures for sign language. Cue Scooby-Doo's famous expression, "Rah-oh." Soohwa panics and tells Yohan that he didn't have to go that far to teach him, but we all know what he's really panicking about, and tells Yohan that he should just use this as a day off, but Yohan only shakes his head. Desperate to get out of this sticky situation, Soohwa babbles on about how he has some issues, and this time, Yohan let him go, but in doing so, also droops his shoulder. Is he some kind of big puppy or what? It wasn't until Soohwa realized that maybe Yohan is feeling excluded again that finally gives in and asks Yohan when he wants him to come in for the lesson. Oh boy, this is a bad idea, Soohwa. It wasn't until he went back inside that he realized the gravity of the situation, him alone in a room with Yohan. A recipe for disaster. As he crouched contemplating his life decisions, Gi-yoon sees him and an idea struck Soohwa's mind. He asks Gi-yoon for a recording of Yohan's voice so he could get used to it. Naturally, Gi-yoon became pretty iffy about it, especially since he knows Soohwa gets weak on the knees by Yohan's voice, and despite being reluctant, Gi-yoon sent it to him after work. While sitting on his bed, Soohwa downloads the voice recording of Yohan's voice, which at first, he thought was just a joke because of the long silence, until he raised the volume and heard Yohan call his name. Kang Soohwa. Oh crap. That one line sent a shiver throughout Soohwa's body. And then the inevitable happens. As the recording of Gi-yoon's conversation with Yohan plays in the background, Soohwa continues to massage himself as Yohan calls out his name. Well, we don't have to be Usher to know that Soohwa's got it bad. And just like, it's the next day already. Not only did Soohwa not get a wink of sleep, he totally didn't get used to Yohan's voice. A very bad combination on a Monday morning. Right before he marches off to the cafe, Soohwa mumbles to himself, "Attaboy, gatekeep and girl boss your feelings." Or in this case, man boss. But will it be enough though? Even Yohan is surprised at the poor state Soohwa arrived into. And just as he was settling into the cafe's ground floor, Yohan shakes his head and tells him that they'll be doing the lessons on the 3rd floor. And yes, it's Yohan's place, so intensifies yet again. As Soohwa panics thinking Gi-yoon might have said something to Yohan, Yohan quickly explained that they're conducting the lesson on the 3rd floor since it's roomier, and much more comfortable than the staff room. Crap, his voice. Yohan sure knows how to strike Soohwa at his weak spot. Hellbent on keeping his cool, Soohwa quickly snapped back to his usual self. Or at least, what he thinks is his usual self. Even Yohan could see that he was pretty strained. So back at Yohan's place, Soohwa couldn't help but notice how bare it is despite being so spacious. As he's about to settle in and put down his coat, Yohan invites him to make himself at. Whoops. Stop right there. Soohwa's hands fly straight to Yohan's mouth to stop him from speaking, under the guise that he can't learn sign if Yohan continues to do so. Nice save. Yohan only nodded and signed Soohwa to sit, saving our hero from one of the biggest stressors in his life right now. Of course, there's more to come later, but right now, Soohwa is at his wit's end. How will our boy ever survive this predicament without embarrassing himself in front of Yohan? Soohwa was so deep in thought that he got startled when Yohan suddenly placed a plate of amu rice in front of him, thinking how he could move so quietly despite being a big man. He must have some secret training in the Hidden Leaf Village or something. Confused with the food in front of him, Yohan explained to Soohwa that it was already lunchtime, which is why they should eat first, signing to the younger man eat. Thankfully, Soohwa got this in mind. Yohan is quite the chef. He was already singing praises, but realized Yohan was too busy eating, which is why it dawned on him that he needs to use sign to get Yohan's attention. Again, Soohwa realized that he should focus on learning sign instead of sweating about personal stuff. And just as he finished giving himself this pep talk and signing to Yohan how delicious the food was, his resolve came crashing down. Because Yohan replied using his own voice. And just when we all thought we were seeing Soohwa build resistance against his voice. Plus, it didn't help that Yohan not only smiled with pure joy, but he also called Soohwa by his name. Again, rendering Soohwa completely useless and captivated. Crap. And just like that, Soohwa reached his breaking point. With Soohwa shivering and frozen in his seat, Yohan couldn't help but notice the latter's changed state, which is why he quickly moved forward, checking to see if there was something wrong with Soohwa. Bad move, bruh. It's bad enough that he has to hear your voice, and now you're also touching him too. R.I.P. Soohwa. Our hero remains frozen in his seat with his thought process running at 1,000,000 miles per hour, contemplating on whether or not he'll use the toilet as his excuse. It's not helping that Yohan continues to call out to him with that deep voice of his. In the end, Soohwa decided that the best course of action is to just get up and brush it off, saying he needs to be somewhere. It would have gone okay if only Yohan could read his lips. Soohwa was too focused that he kept his head low, so now Yohan had to hold Soohwa's face to read his lips. Oh boy, this time it's much worse. Soohwa can feel Yohan's voice vibrating through his body, resonating through his cheeks. Flushed and shivering, Yohan thought that Soohwa has a fever, so he stood up to call Gi-yoon and have him drive them to the hospital. In a panic, Soohwa grabs Yohan a little too hard, which caused the older man to stumble backward and land on top of Soohwa. The cliché scene we're all too familiar with. Upon landing on Soohwa, Yohan gets up and checks if the younger man is alright, but at this point, Soohwa is too embarrassed and got his hands covering his face. As Yohan continues to check him, that's when it hit him. Soohwa's son stands in full attention, with Yohan's hands on top of it. Soohwa quickly explains that he's just tired, which is why he's having a wood problem, but Yohan, on the other hand, is frozen and scared. Although, it looks like there's more to this than meets the eye. Here's where we get a quick flashback of Yohan's past. It seems like this isn't the first time Yohan encountered something like this. As Soohwa airs his apology continuously, Yohan is busy reliving his past, which involves another. The man forces a young Yohan to face him, but he doesn't want to and pushed him away. This caused the man to fall, and what's worse, he tells Yohan that this is all his fault and that he needs to take responsibility. Whoops, looks like we got somebody out here with some serious anger management issues and a certified manipulator. Remembering all these, Yohan is obviously scared and is in fight or flight mode, and what he did next was quite the unexpected. Well, that was an unexpected response. Or is it? Soohwa tries to stop Yohan from doing so and struggled a lot, but alas, Yohan is bigger and stronger. What did he expect? And then he starts helping our dude out, much to his embarrassment. But it didn't take long for him to give in, especially since Yohan knows the best spots. Men really out here know their bodies best? No. But Yohan just wants to make Soohwa to reach his peak as quickly as possible, which is why it took him a while to see and read Soohwa's lips. Our dude's apologizing profusely with tears in his eyes. To this, Yohan tries to shush Soohwa, saying he understands that he's just tired and helping him out, but Yohan doesn't even believe in his own words. It didn't take long for Soohwa to finish, making a mess of Yohan's glasses in the process. As if Soohwa hasn't had enough apology today, he continues to say sorry to Yohan, promising him that he'll buy him a new pair of glasses as soon as he gets paid. Yohan, on the other hand, doesn't mind at all. In fact, he has come to realize that he's not scared of what happened between them compared to what happened in his past. The next day, Soohwa thinks back about the events that happened between him and Yohan. It turns out that after Yohan helped him out with his wood problem, Soohwa decided to go home and not push through with the sign lesson. Yohan was pretty quiet and obliging, not surprising since that's how he usually is, and even walked him to the door. But before he left, Soohwa turned back one more time and signed an apology to Yohan, with the latter signing back saying it was fine. Now, here's the surprising part. Yohan pats Soohwa's head and tells Soohwa that he's open to helping him again if he ever feels tired. Insert shocked Pikachu face, like, who does that? Soohwa, dumbstruck, only agrees but made a mental note never to tell Yohan if he ever needed to. Now, back to the present. Soohwa's busy cooking eggs when Gi-yoon notices that he looks more tired than ever. Of course, Soohwa admits that he didn't get much sleep, and Gi-yoon, being Gi-yoon, told him that he thought the younger man was busy massaging himself to the recording of Yohan's voice. Well, he's not exactly wrong there. Hearing this, Soohwa got pretty defensive, to which Gi-yoon only assured him that he was joking. Like they used to say, jokes are half meant. Plus, it didn't help that the recording Gi-yoon sent of Yohan kept calling out Soohwa's name, which added a little more spice to his massage session. This time, Soohwa got even more aggravated and tried taking a swing at Gi-yoon with a spatula, but the latter only teased him all the more, saying that Soohwa must have liked this recording better. Oh no, this time Gi-yoon really did it, get on Soohwa's nerves. Soohwa then tried to hit Gi-yoon with the spatula, but lucky for Gi-yoon, and too bad for Soohwa, he's taller, so he caught Soohwa's arm mid-swing and told him to focus on the eggs that he was cooking. And too late, the eggs are burned. Soohwa then told Gi-yoon that he should have turned the stove off, but the latter quips that it's not his job to do so. And if you think that's the end of their convo about it, think again. Gi-yoon still kept on asking Soohwa why he wasn't able to sleep at all last night, but it took a while for Soohwa to answer. When he did, our dude just asked Gi-yoon if he doesn't have something better to do than tease him. Careful, Soohwa, this is Gi-yoon you're talking to. And Gi-yoon only responded, asking Soohwa if he wants to be buried alive, which left the younger man flustered and scared. In the end, he told Gi-yoon that he was up all night studying sign language, which is why he wasn't able to get a wink of sleep. Yeah, sure, studying sign. Still not minding his own business, Gi-yoon continues to pester Soohwa about Yohan's voice, telling him to control his urges. But alas, our hero is but a simpleton, and admits that he can't control it. To this, Gi-yoon suggests that he should just tell Yohan the truth. But just the mere thought of it is spiraling Soohwa into a panicked state. Like, how can he admit that Yohan's voice makes him weak? And that what happened yesterday was not because he was tired, but because he gets weak? Yeah, I'd definitely panic too if I was him. And just as Soohwa tells Gi-yoon not to tell Yohan, here comes Yohan making an appearance. And just like a ninja too. But instead of joining in on the conversation, Yohan only proceeded to turn the stove off and told Soohwa to make another batch of eggs. As Yohan walks upstairs, Gi-yoon made a comment about how Yohan seems to have a habit of appearing out of the blue, something Soohwa also noticed. But here comes another problem for poor Soohwa. This time, his heart kept pounding when Yohan was near. For Soohwa, he finds it weird, especially since the older man didn't speak at all. "Soohwa, my dude, it's because of what happened between you two, duh." And no sooner had Soohwa realized this than it also dawned on him that Yohan seems to be unfazed by it all, which left him feeling disappointed. Wait, what? Why the heck should he feel disappointed that Yohan's acting normal? To get his senses back together, Soohwa abruptly bangs his forehead on the table, much to Gi-yoon's surprise. And like many times before, Soohwa gives himself a pep talk on how he should be glad that Yohan is acting like nothing happened, which is a whole lot better. Plus, he's at work, for goodness sake, so focus. Eyes on the prize, Soohwa. Feeling that he conditioned himself enough, Soohwa asks Gi-yoon to look after the eggs he's cooking, since he decided that he'll clean the cafe's restroom instead. Gi-yoon obliged and told Soohwa that he should wash his face because it got messed up when he banged it against the table. And before he walked off, Soohwa told Gi-yoon that if he ever goes through with his threat of making him plant food, he should bury our dude someplace dark and shady, since he believes that's where he belongs. Poor kid's pretty horrified already, and he hasn't even been working long in Café Goyo. But Gi-yoon only dismissed this idea and told him to clean the toilet instead. Meanwhile, Yohan seems to be busy looking for something, or someone, under the table when Gi-yoon noticed him doing so. Seeing his friend's peculiar actions, Gi-yoon asked Yohan if he was looking for Soohwa, to which the other only nodded. Gi-yoon then directed Yohan that Soohwa is busy cleaning the restroom, and off he goes in a rush, stumbling to go where Soohwa is, with Gi-yoon taking a pic of him. Classic Gi-yoon. You never know when you get to use these types of media. As he makes his way to the restroom, Yohan stopped and wondered why he was looking for Soohwa in the first place. Earlier, when he passed by the two, he didn't know what else to say to Soohwa, which is why he only told him to redo the eggs he was cooking. Now, he wonders why he is looking for Soohwa. Turns out Yohan wasn't as unfazed as Soohwa thought. He's just as bothered as he is. Man, this dude's pretty good at hiding his feelings. As he continues to wonder why, he opens the door to the restroom and sees Soohwa washing his face. Our main character, on the other hand, is shocked at Yohan's sudden appearance. So while Yohan was busy for Soohwa a while ago, our boy immersed himself in cleaning the restroom. Nothing like good hard labor to keep one's mind off things, right? Wrong. That doesn't work for our boy Soohwa. Despite pouring sweat and effort to make the restroom sparkly clean, Soohwa thought that it could help calm his mind and wipe clean of all his troubles. But nope, this was just wishful thinking. He still couldn't keep calm about what happened between him and Yohan. It's pretty hard to forget all that. And what's even more stressful for him is that he remembers all the nitty-gritty details of yesterday, which made him flush in embarrassment once again. And here, we see Soohwa doing his best to forget everything, hoping that with every scrub of the toilet bowl, it'll wipe his memory clean of that night. If only real life worked like that, we probably have more than a few memories we all want to erase, right? While wiping the mirror, Soohwa saw a glimpse of himself and how much of a mess he is, which is why he doused himself with cold water, making him contemplate his relationship with Yohan. Like, it can't be normal, right? Even Soohwa is aware that what happened between them was not right. But before he could finish that thought, in comes Yohan. And yeep, he finally nailed it. He keeps thinking of weird things because of Yohan. Now face to face, Yohan moves closer to Soohwa, with the younger man once again panicking, thinking why his boss is trying to approach him. Then just as suddenly, he asked Soohwa using sign why he was wet. Obviously, Soohwa couldn't admit to Yohan that he was trying to cool his head because of him, right? So he only just said that he's trying to cool down. But Yohan was still curious and concerned for him, so he signed what's been troubling Soohwa. How sweet of him. But Soohwa, with his limited knowledge of sign, didn't understand all of Yohan's signs at all. So, when in doubt, say yes. At least that's what Soohwa's mindset is. He thought that Yohan was giving him orders. Epic fail. In an attempt to make conversation, Soohwa only asked if Yohan had anything else to say, to which Yohan shook his head. He thought it was his cue to take his leave. This obviously startled Yohan, who was trying to understand Soohwa. In a desperate attempt, Yohan held onto Soohwa's arm and called his name. Again, we all know how much this affects Soohwa, but this time, the thoughts in his head are louder. Trembling on his spot, Yohan's actions only made Soohwa wonder what Yohan wants with him and if he was doing it on purpose. If Soohwa does nothing but panic in the last few chapters, Yohan, on the other hand, continues to be puzzled by what's happening. See, their energies are proportional in more ways than they thought. But since Soohwa thinks he's being backed into a corner, he assumes that Yohan's doing everything on purpose and that he knows Soohwa gets weak when he hears his voice. Talk about a grave misunderstanding. Can't believe Soohwa voluntarily came forward like this. Yohan continues to be puzzled and surprised at this turn of events, especially with Soohwa's admission of being smitten by his voice. But Yohan only wonders if he should comfort Soohwa in this situation. even in the most stressful of times. I can't believe Yohan still thinks of Soohwa's state first. But when it all comes down to it, the secret is out. Soohwa turns to jelly when he hears Yohan's voice. So Yohan, without batting an eye, asks Soohwa upfront if he's smitten right now. Didn't expect Yohan to be this straightforward. In all honesty, Soohwa never thought he'd see himself in a close position with Yohan doing it again. And yet here they are. Soohwa, with his legs spread sitting in the lavatory, allows Yohan to do his thing. But this time, it's in a more intimate setting. With his eyes closed and shivering, Soohwa wonders out loud if Yohan is out of his mind, to which Yohan only vaguely admits he's too focused on helping Soohwa out at the moment. With his hands on Soohwa's, Yohan continues to massage, somewhat amazed that Soohwa really does gets weak when he hears Yohan's voice. Giving into the feeling, Soohwa makes a bit of a mess on Yohan's glasses. Because of this, Yohan decided to stop for a bit, took off his glasses, and made Soohwa wear them instead, since this kind of mess doesn't wipe down easily. No sooner had he put these glasses on Soohwa did Yohan continue to massage him with his hands, and adds bonus affection. Because of this, Soohwa couldn't help but grab hold of Yohan's hair, grasping for anything to hold on to, all the while asking if Yohan hates him. Man's got a point though, like, why would you voluntarily beat someone off just like that? These two really are way out of their minds. Surprisingly, Yohan actually has his own reasons why he's doing this to Soohwa. He feels that by helping him, he's somehow making up for the sins of his past. Oh, whatever bad things Yohan must have done in the past. He thinks he's absolving it by helping Soohwa out. But what kind of bad things did he do for him to go to this extent? With Soohwa finally done, Yohan too finds relief that he managed to help Soohwa out. But at the same time, it made the bigger guy think that he's somewhat twisted too. Yes, Yohan, you are. Now, what kind of future will happen to these two? You and I both know that they've crossed the line of professionalism. Soohwa continues to be in a daze, slowly coming to his senses when Yohan gives him a quick smooch on the forehead and at the same time, ruffled his hair. What's this? This is definitely a quick development from the first time. As Yohan continues to ruffle Soohwa's hair, he notices that he has a cut on his forehead, which prompted him to ask where he got it. Well, Yohan, it's from the previous chapter, so don't sweat about it. Soohwa, on the other hand, lied and said that he got it when he tripped and fell, but Yohan continued to worry over it, telling Soohwa that he should treat it later. But the thing is, Soohwa's getting weak again. It didn't help that Yohan was still leaning onto him, so yeep, he can definitely feel Yohan's voice reverberate through his body. This time, Soohwa pushes Yohan back, asking him if he's doing it on purpose, and this time, Yohan admits that he is. So now, we go to round 2. With Soohwa standing against the counter, Yohan positions himself behind Soohwa and continues to help him. As the bigger man massages him, he supports Soohwa's hip by holding him. And just as Soohwa tells Yohan that he's about to reach his peak, Gi-yoon just had to make an appearance and shouts from the outside if Soohwa's still busy cleaning the restroom. What a bummer. In a panic, Soohwa did what any one of us would do in that situation, hide in one of the stalls. So he dragged Yohan along with him and hid from Gi-yoon as the latter entered the restroom. Gi-yoon opened the door, telling Soohwa that he should finish cleaning the restroom now that the people are starting to come in. Well, he didn't expect to see a watery floor in a Soohwa-less restroom. Meanwhile, in the stalls, Soohwa sits on top of Yohan as he speaks in hushed tones, telling Yohan that Gi-yoon suddenly came inside. Yohan then understood why Soohwa abruptly dragged him inside but felt bad for him. Our guy is not only shivering but he was almost done back there. And this is where we get to see Yohan tease Soohwa. Realizing the direness of their situation, Yohan starts to help him out once again. And just when Soohwa told Yohan that Gi-yoon is outside, bad Yohan, of course, Soohwa was quick to give in. And the mere thought of Gi-yoon outside just adds to his excitement for him. Not to mention the fact that he was just about to reach his peak a while ago. Soohwa may feel like he's in heaven while inside the stall, but outside, Gi-yoon stares blankly at the pair of pants placed on top of the counter. It didn't take 2 and 2 for Gi-yoon to deduce that it was Soohwa's pants, but the question is, why are his pants there? Realizing this, an unlikely image of a pantless Soohwa popped into Gi-yoon's head, which stressed the heck out of him. The mental image Gi-yoon had was simply too much for him. So he tried to brush it off and left the restroom, calling out Soohwa in the process. Inside the restroom cubicle, Soohwa was on the brink of finishing. However, right at the last moment, Yohan decided to stop. This left Soohwa feeling quite frustrated, prompting him to question why the older man did it. In response, Yohan explained that he stopped out of concern that Gi-yoon might overhear Soohwa. To this, our main character swiftly retorted, pointing out that Gi-yoon had already left. Soohwa eagerly grasped Yohan's hands, urging him to continue. Fortunately, Yohan caved into Soohwa's wishes, leading to main character's eventual release. Much like before, Soohwa once again unintentionally dirtied Yohan's glasses. Is this déjà vu? Nevertheless, Yohan remained still, supporting Soohwa as he gradually descended from his peak. After this, Soohwa and Yohan faced Gi-yoon, explaining to him that they just went somewhere, without giving a solid explanation. What a classic excuse. And while he was at it, Gi-yoon also asked Soohwa why his pants were on the counter but quickly stopped himself from prodding further because he remembered the mental image of pantless Soohwa. Even if Gi-yoon didn't push through with the questions, Soohwa still felt somewhat offended by that, but Gi-yoon quickly changed the topic and instructed Soohwa to take over work, especially since he covered for him. So, back to doing chores. As he looked at the sink though, Soohwa noticed that Gi-yoon didn't even touch a single thing. But then again, are we even surprised at this point, knowing his character? Still, Soohwa let it slide, especially since he knew for himself that he did take a long break. As he busies himself with the dishes, Soohwa overhears Gi-yoon asking Yohan where his glasses are. Whoops. Gi-yoon continues to ask if Yohan misplaced them, but Yohan explained that he got something on them, which is why he took them off. Sure, something. Yohan, sweating profusely, signed to Gi-yoon that he got some detergent on it, and thankfully, Gi-yoon was quick to believe him. Soon enough, the cafe closes in for the night, and as Soohwa walks back to his place, he can't help but remember the events of today. He thought to himself that in the end, he revealed to Yohan how he gets weak by his voice and pretty much everything else. From his perspective, Yohan seems pretty chill about it all, which Soohwa thinks is ideal since he doesn't need to hide anything from Yohan anymore. In line with this thought, Soohwa concluded that maybe it's alright for the two of them to keep doing what they're doing. Soohwa thinks that as long as Yohan is okay with it, he thinks that it's not a bad deal. But wait a minute, is it mutual? Was Yohan captivated as well? This time, the focus is on Gi-yoon. From Soohwa's perspective, he's trying his best to figure out Gi-yoon. From what he's deduced so far, Gi-yoon is a bit older than him, and he's also much taller than Soohwa. What's pretty evident about Gi-yoon though, is that he barely does any work in the cafe. Well, at least Gi-yoon was pretty honest about that when he first introduced himself. Unlike Soohwa and Yohan, who usually comes in pretty early, Gi-yoon just goes to work whenever he pleases, so he's pretty late most days, and you can probably count on one hand the rare instances he goes to work on time. But just because he goes to work doesn't mean he's there to actually do work. Most of the time he's there, Gi-yoon does nothing and just sits around or even walks around outside. In a nutshell, one can say that Gi-yoon is a pretty lazy person. Knowing all these facts, it came as a surprise to Soohwa that suddenly, Gi-yoon is taking the initiative and proposed to do all the cleaning so Soohwa could take a break. Sounds fishy. What's even weirder is that Gi-yoon also insists that Yohan should take a break as well, and take a seat right next to Soohwa. Fed up with the anxiety he's feeling, Soohwa confronts Gi-yoon on what he's hiding from him. To this, Gi-yoon stopped dead in his tracks and after a long pause said that it was nothing. This man really is lying through his teeth because obviously, something's up. Still, he didn't like Soohwa's accusatory tone, so once again he threatened to scratch that, told him off. Bent on continuing his cleaning, Gi-yoon tells the two of them that he'll clean the second floor and that if the two want to, they should just eat something. Soohwa was quick to realize that Gi-yoon was somewhat serious about his threat to turn him into plant food, so he did what Gi-yoon suggested they should do and relaxed while sitting, and if anything, Soohwa's more concerned whether or not Yohan is smitten as well. While Soohwa was busy mulling over this, Yohan joined him at the table and prepared a refreshing drink for him as well. As he was thinking about Yohan, the door to the cafe suddenly swung open. Soohwa just about told the guest that they were not open yet, but it turns out to be a delivery, with the delivery man beaming and all smiles. Another hottie has joined the ranks. So this refreshing delivery guy was quick to unload all of Yohan's supply orders, commenting that business is pretty good with the number of orders Yohan places regularly. What's pretty surprising to Soohwa though is that the delivery guy signed for Yohan, asking for his signature. To this, the delivery guy explained to Soohwa that his local college offered some courses in sign languages, which is why he's able to communicate with Yohan through it. And you know what else? He's a pretty hard-working guy. Aside from learning sign, this delivery guy also assisted several students with disabilities by offering to type for them. Even Soohwa found it cute how this guy works pretty hard and in an adorable way. Now, he was about to move the rest of the supply boxes to the storage at the back of the cafe when Gi-yoon comes out of nowhere and helps him. Gi-yoon, in an unusually bright and cheerful mood, greets the delivery guy with all smiles, with the latter echoing the sentiment. It turns out that Gi-yoon is a sunbae, a senior, to this hardworking guy in college. Naturally, he was pleased but at the same time surprised because he thought it was Gi-yoon's day off. But Gi-yoon only told him that he was busy cleaning the second floor, which earned him the praise of this diligent cutie. So this is the reason why Gi-yoon was acting weird earlier. Gi-yoon even knows that this is the only delivery this guy is doing today. This new and hard-working Gi-yoon insists that his junior from his college should stick around for a little while. And that's not all. Gi-yoon also said that he will prepare something for his junior once he's done putting the boxes at the back. Soohwa, who bore witness to all this, has a million thoughts running through his mind, especially with how Gi-yoon's junior called him a hard-working guy. But as soon as the two of them were out back and alone, Gi-yoon was quick to threaten Soohwa not to say anything. Done with putting the boxes away, Gi-yoon spends time talking with his junior leisurely, with Soohwa and Yohan looking from the counter. In fact, this is the happiest Soohwa has seen Gi-yoon, which made him ask Yohan who the delivery guy is. Yohan signed to Soohwa saying that the delivery guy's name is Cha Ji-hye, a hubei or junior of Gi-yoon from university, and that he's the person Gi-yoon likes. This piece of information came as a surprise to Soohwa since he never thought he was the type to like someone. But Soohwa had a hard time understanding that Ji-hye was Gi-yoon's hubei, so Yohan had to mouth the words to Soohwa. Yohan said that he didn't want to speak, especially since he knows it'll be difficult for Soohwa, which made Soohwa think that maybe it was only hard for him. His thought got interrupted suddenly when Ji-hye was told them that he was about to head off and thanked them for the time. Now the funny thing is, Gi-yoon also told Yohan that he'll be getting off work, with the shop not even opened yet. But Gi-yoon only said that everyone deserves a break now and then. The audacity of Gi-yoon is unbelievable. With the two already gone, Soohwa told Yohan that he was also going to work harder to learn sign, since seeing Ji-hye communicate with Yohan through sign inspired him. As he went outside to put up the cafe's sign, Soohwa then receives a text from Yohan, inviting him if he wants to come over again on their day off to learn sign. Oh no. While lying in bed, Soohwa goes back to his original hobby, overthinking. Can't blame him though, especially not after Yohan sent a text message like that. He's back to his original dilemma. Whenever Yohan helps him, does the older guy feel the same way? Soohwa thinks that if Yohan did, then maybe he should return the favor to the older guy as well. But unlike Yohan, who's pretty skilled with his hands, Soohwa doesn't have those and thought that maybe he should research ways to help Yohan as well, especially if the older guy feels the same as Soohwa. That's one big if. Thinking all of this, Soohwa can't help that maybe Yohan is gay too, but he didn't let himself get too far ahead with this idea and just focused on how to give back to Yohan when he chanced upon a special massage on his phone. This one definitely caught his attention, but how exactly can he make Yohan do the thing that he saw on his research? And just like that, Soohwa spent the rest of his night learning more about this topic, and he may have overdone a little too much that he dreamed of Yohan and him getting frisky. If that wasn't bad enough, he also slept through his alarm and is now late for work. So off he went, running with a bedhead and disheveled clothes, and just as he reached the shop, he bore witness to a very angry and drunk customer shouting at Yohan. Soohwa witnessed the man demanding an apology from Yohan and wasn't even aware that Yohan was deaf, so Soohwa took it upon himself and intervened. And the reason for this man's outburst, it's because of their coffee and how it tasted like crap. I mean, dude, there's a big sign that their coffee is bad. So Soohwa introduced himself as the cafe's part-timer and told the man that there was a notice on the menu that their coffee tastes bad, but the customer refuted this claim, saying he didn't see a sign. All the while Yohan and Soohwa looking at him with the big red sign saying how their coffee doesn't taste good. The irony and the sheer hard-headedness of this man are astounding. The man continues his outburst saying how he went into the cafe for a coffee to cure his hangover, but not only did it taste like crap, Yohan won't even apologize. To this, Soohwa said that Yohan has a hearing impairment and was apologizing through sign. Still, this wasn't enough for the customer and even showed contempt against Yohan, saying he was causing more harm than good to the customers. Oh no, he didn't. Hearing this, Soohwa got angry and told off the customer for being drunk at this time of day. And just as they were about to get into an altercation, Yohan stepped in and told them to stop. That sure made them stop, hearing Yohan's voice. Everyone in the cafe got their eyes on Yohan, surprised at how nice his voice is, with many of the customers already fawning over it and the man himself shocked. But since knowing that Yohan could speak, he questioned why didn't he just apologize in the first place. If there's one thing this man has too much of, it's audacity. I tell ya. And just like a superhero in the nick of time, in comes Gi-yoon, waltzing into the cafe and saving the day. As the customers were starting to panic, Gi-yoon calmly put his hand on the man's shoulder, whose name is Mr. Kim, and advised him to stop and just leave. And if he didn't want to leave, Gi-yoon moved closer and whispered something to Mr. Kim's ear with a sinister smile. Shocked, the man was surprised at what he said, and Gi-yoon threatened that he'll tell everyone his secrets, which made Mr. Kim leave immediately. Maybe Gi-yoon has some mafia blood in him? No. Back in the staff room, Soohwa noticed that Gi-yoon not only reeked of alcohol, but he's also wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Ever so curious, Soohwa asked what happened, but Gi-yoon brushed him off, saying that he doesn't need to know and that he was still a little kid. Shifting his focus back to Soohwa, Gi-yoon also noticed that this is the first time that he came in late for work and that his hair is a mess, but Soohwa said that he was up late studying. Changing the topic, Soohwa then asked what Gi-yoon said to the man, but the latter only told him that he already knew that the drunk man was trouble since it wasn't the first time he went to the cafe. Back then, he was also rude and demanding, so Gi-yoon took it upon himself to dig every piece of dirt about the man. And that thing he whispered into the man's ear earlier could lead to his family breaking up. Hearing all this, I'm pretty convinced that Gi-yoon is definitely a part of the mafia. Even Soohwa got more scared of Gi-yoon when he heard all of this, and Gi-yoon, sensing Soohwa's low-key freaking out, flicked his forehead to ease the tension. In addition to that, he assured him that he doesn't dig dirt on the good guys and that Soohwa's not too bad for a part-timer. This made Soohwa ask if other part-timers weren't exactly good. And apparently, there's a long list of them. Gi-yoon enumerated a few where one openly talked smack about Yohan. Then there's another one who believed that Yohan was just feigning his hearing impairment and thought to himself that maybe it'll get him out of military duty. And then there are the worse ones, who played messed up pranks on Yohan, even hurting him to an extent just so they could hear his voice. This went on for a long while, so Gi-yoon took it upon himself to fire those people and made sure they never came back to the cafe again, or to any other cafes for that matter. Hearing Gi-yoon speak like that made Soohwa realize that he was not a force to be reckoned with, but Gi-yoon only said to him that compared to those people, Soohwa was not too bad. Not believing what he heard, Soohwa asked Gi-yoon if he was still drunk because of how he praised him, which earned him another flick on the forehead. Ouch. Now, Soohwa understands why Gi-yoon was totally against the idea of him working as a part-timer back then, thinking Soohwa may also hurt Yohan. Turns out Gi-yoon was only looking after Yohan after all. Because of this, Soohwa asked Yohan what's the deal about Gi-yoon, curious to know more about him. Yohan was startled and started sweating a little, and told Soohwa that Gi-yoon's story is a secret. And from the looks of it, even Yohan himself is scared of Gi-yoon to some extent. Fast forward to a week later, Soohwa once again finds himself in the cafe's garden with Yohan in front of him, plant in hand. So turns out he's got a real job waiting for him at the cafe, not just sign lessons. But rest assured, Yohan promised that he'll get overtime pay for this. Soohwa was already aware that the cafe has a pretty huge garden, but the number of plants present there, far too many. Soohwa asked why he keeps on buying new plants, but Yohan only shook his head, so Soohwa deduced that these were gifts. Soon enough, they finished repotting all the other plants, and Yohan signed Soohwa to go ahead and proceed upstairs as he'll finish tidying up the pots first. Soohwa picked up his bag and was about to head up when he suddenly grabbed Yohan's elbow, asking for the passcode to his place. Surprisingly, Yohan was quick to trust Soohwa with his passcode, so now the younger man was able to access his place easily. Now inside, Soohwa settled inside and started reminiscing about the lessons from last night. Yes, the special lessons he self-studied. Throwback to the events of last night, Soohwa really invested in learning more about the special massage. According to what he discovered on his phone, what he needs to do is to touch a certain point in the other's body that will make them weak in an instant. If in Deadpool, they have maximum effort as his catchphrase, here they have maximum pleasure. But all these pieces of information weren't done overnight, mind you. Soohwa spent a lot of time researching this special message, and he even bought the necessary paraphernalia. The only problem is, how can he bring this up? Our dude can't exactly walk up to Yohan and ask the big guy to do the things Soohwa saw on his research, right? He needs to exercise a certain delicacy for this subject. Soohwa's thoughts got interrupted as soon as he heard Yohan punching the code, and no sooner had he stepped on the threshold did he show a piece of paper to Soohwa. What are the contents of the paper, you ask? A proposed study plan for sign language. Soohwa was dumbfounded, thinking that Yohan asked him to come today for that, but it turns out the big guy's bent on teaching him today. Soohwa was just about to bring up the topic, but it all came crashing down as he sees the study plan drafted by Yohan. This left him not only feeling humiliated and blushing beet red, but also trembling in embarrassment. He got ahead of himself and misread Yohan's actions. As Soohwa sat at the table, study plan in hand and recovering from his humiliation, Yohan prepares a drink for him. Little did he know, Soohwa was making a mental note of just keeping his focus since he feels so embarrassed about what he initially thought this meeting was about. Tisk tisk, Soohwa, let this be a hard-earned lesson for you to never jump the gun. Yohan, the ever-so-oblivious Yohan, even thought that Soohwa was determined by the intensity of how he was looking at the study plan. So Soohwa continues to read over the study plan and noticed how Yohan wrote that Soohwa should use sign language as much as possible so that he could get the hang of using sign. According to Yohan, Soohwa needs to get comfortable with using signs, which is not exactly an easy feat. Now, Yohan sits opposite Soohwa with his game face on, and signed for Soohwa that they should begin. With renewed fervor, Soohwa cheered himself on. But this was pretty short-lived, and he realized just how hard learning sign is. Saturated with all these new pieces of information, Yohan proposed a short break, to which Soohwa said that he'll get his book first. Sensing Soohwa's tiredness, Yohan offered to get it for him, and Soohwa was quick to instruct him that it was inside his bag. With his brain overloading with new information, a thought suddenly occurred to Soohwa: his bag. There's something Yohan isn't supposed to see. At least not yet. But it was too late. In a few quick strides, Yohan was already rummaging through Soohwa's bag, and just as Soohwa stood up to stop him, Yohan got his hand on the special paraphernalia Soohwa brought today. Crap. What's more, Soohwa, in a hurry, slipped once again. And where did he land this time? The two now abandoned their lessons and are sitting across from each other, with Soohwa doing his best not to make eye contact with Yohan. But Yohan, on the other hand, is shooting judgmental looks towards Soohwa. And yeah, they need to have the talk. Yohan made the first move and signed to Soohwa why he brought such a thing to today's lesson, and Soohwa, being honest for the first time, said that using it would make everything feel a whole lot better. He has a point, but that didn't exactly answer Yohan's question. However, Soohwa was quick to add that he thought Yohan invited him over to help him do that, with Soohwa already brimming with tears out of sheer embarrassment. Surprisingly though, Yohan admitted that Soohwa was half right. He did invite Soohwa for that. But Soohwa thought that Yohan is lying until Yohan pulled him closer and whispered in his ear, saying that it was true. Ah, Yohan's voice. It's been a while since Soohwa heard it, but it's just as good as the first time he heard it. This time, it was Yohan who admitted to Soohwa that maybe Soohwa doesn't feel anything anymore, especially after Soohwa didn't react to his voice when he yelled at the customer. To that, Soohwa explained that it was hardly the situation and he was too shocked to say anything at the time. So Yohan's assumptions were wrong this time, and as proof, Soohwa told him to look at him. He's already feeling it. Seeing Yohan's expression, Soohwa thought for a hot minute that Yohan looks somewhat happy at the thought that his voice still has an effect on him. This is why he immediately took the stuff and asked Soohwa if he wanted to use this certain paraphernalia for today. Wowie. Not gonna lie though, Soohwa didn't think that Yohan would be on board with his idea that easily and was excited to apply all the things he learned from before. But boy, did he think wrong. Soohwa thought he will be the one to lead Yohan, but the opposite happened. Again, he's on the receiving end this time too. Hot dang. Now, Soohwa finds himself seated in between Yohan's legs, with the latter busy to get our dude in a more comfortable fashion. In his mind, Soohwa continues to be puzzled at this turn of events. He was the one who should be helping Yohan, so why is the big guy using this stuff on our main character? But all his thoughts soon disappeared as Yohan touched him in a way, leaving our main character trembling in Yohan's chest. At the time, he thought that he was fine with this as long as it feels good. Of course, it is, duh. Yohan has a knack for this. It feels so good that Soohwa didn't think that it could get any better. And that's when Yohan decided to use the materials Soohwa brought and poured it on our main character's son. It would have immediately felt good. But Yohan didn't warm it up using his fingers, and this sudden cold sensation left Soohwa shivering because of the cold. Add that to the fact that it's starting to get colder these days too, since winter is coming. Soohwa moved his legs, telling Yohan that it was too cold while the older guy looks about him, confused. So Yohan put down the paraphernalia and moved Soohwa's legs, leaving our dude embarrassed as heck. I mean, that position is a bit too much. Trying to settle down for a bit, Soohwa tells Yohan to let go for a moment but forgot that Yohan is deaf. He kept saying to Yohan that he feels a little too exposed, but the other just looks on. Right, because he can't hear you, Soohwa. How could you forget? Must be the passion he's feeling right now. Now face to face with Yohan. The older man only asked if he feels hurt in any way, but Soohwa only tells him that he's too exposed because of the position he's in. And given how fast the progress of their relationship went, can't really blame Soohwa for acting as such. Thinking that Soohwa must have felt uncomfortable, Yohan helped Soohwa move in a more comfortable stance. Now, that is an interesting position. Even Soohwa himself thinks so too. Thinking that they're all good, Yohan starts massaging. And it looks like this position makes Soohwa feel even better, paired with the special stuff he bought, since our man's feeling it with his face almost dropping to the floor. But before Soohwa could do that, Yohan grabbed him and made our guy lean against Yohan's broad chest, all the while making Soohwa more comfortable. With his other hand, Yohan starts exploring Soohwa's chest. New to the sensation, Soohwa only said that it feels weird, but Yohan assured him, saying that even men are sensitive when it comes to that part of their bodies. With the multiple attacks he is receiving from Yohan, Soohwa can't help but cry out, telling Yohan that he's about to reach his peak. But man, all this combo, that's what you call a triple kill. Despite feeling dazed, Soohwa managed to maintain a semblance of sanity, thinking that he doesn't want to be the only one that's all freshened up. Our boy remembered that he also wants to do his part and reciprocate Yohan's efforts. So while Yohan is busy trying to make him reach his peak, Soohwa starts reaching out for Yohan to return the favor, but what's this? Yohan doesn't feel anything. Oh no, the shame. Soohwa can actually feel the embarrassment pulling into his body. And Yohan, on the other hand, is wondering what Soohwa is trying to do to him.